Welcome back to Sunday Evening Devotions. We continue our look at Matthew's use of the Old Testament messianic promises that we find in his gospel to prove that Jesus is the Messiah. Our next one is found in Matthew chapter 2, where the Magi, or the wise men from the east, come to Jerusalem. And they come saying, "Where is he who has been born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it arose and have come to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ, was to be born. And they told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Now Matthew takes a very commonly understood passage from the prophet Micah at the time that was understood to refer to the Messiah, and it told of his origin, the city from which he would be born. Matthew quotes Micah, I think, not only because this was commonly understood as the answer to the question, but also because of the context that we find in this particular account. We have Micah the prophet, who prophesied prior to the destruction of the Old Testament kingdoms of Israel to the north and Judah to the south, Samaria and Jerusalem, when God cast them into exile because of their sins. But he also then promised that God would restore his people and prophesied concerning the coming of the Messiah in the latter days. And in particular, he noted that the nations would be gathered to this Messiah, so that he would be a Messiah not just to the Jews, but to all the world. And so it is not without importance that when the Magi come calling, that Matthew sees this is the fulfillment of Micah's prophecy. This prophecy that he quotes is not a verbatim prophecy, but is a reference to that particular verse, as well as the messianic promise that David would shepherd his people as God had made him the chief shepherd, which is a promise then of his son to sit on the throne that we find in 2 Samuel chapter 5. So all this comes together in Matthew's mind by the work of the Holy Spirit, that indeed the time has come for the Messiah, not just for the Jews, but the Messiah who would rule over the world and that would draw the nations to himself. This is the gospel age. This is the coming of the kingdom. And that is good news. Good night.